Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
And this is a science fiction movie podcast. Every week we get together, we've watched a movie, we talk about it. This is the second film in our 70s month, so we're going to dive right into the Andromeda Strain, which will start spoiler free. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers. This film came out in 1971 and is a story of a virus that comes down from space on a satellite, and all of the procedures that a team of scientists have to put in place to study it and figure out why it killed a whole little town, and should they have to prevent further spread. Very topical, of course, in the year of 2020. Not that it came from a satellite or anything, but you know what I mean.
Not the reason we're doing this.
No. This was just on the list, and it seemed like a worthwhile movie to do. So that's the gist of the film. I shall ask Tara the question. What did you actually? First question: had you seen this before?
No.
Okay, in that case, regular question: what did you think of the Andromeda Strain?
I am a bit conflicted on this one.
Conflicted? Oh no.
I think the science is very good. I think the sets are very cool, but there's a lot of animals being tortured that I had to witness. And as somebody who defends the rights of animals and their welfare, I do not enjoy watching that at all. Very uncomfortable for more than one scene in this film.
There's a couple of scenes. There's one in particular scene with a monkey that I felt a bit uncomfortable. I never even questioned it with the rats or whatever. Yeah, but not because I don't care about rats per se, but just because there was something specific about the way the monkey was. I was like, that's not acting. He can't act. Like, they didn't get a monkey to pretend to like spasm.
I mean, I looked up the trivia and there was a mention of what they did for the monkey, and we'll talk about it when we get to the scene.
Okay. So
the monkey lives.
Oh, good. Okay, so we'll get to that in spoilers.
But I still don't enjoy watching animals be tortured, regardless if they're monkeys or rats or anything like that. And it's not an easy thing to watch or an easy thing to approve of for a film. And yeah, that part I definitely don't like. There's also just some general issues in the film overall. I mean, it's a Michael Crichton movie, and the other Crichton movies we've done, with the exception of Jurassic Park and Sphere, both 10 out of 10.
Oh, whoa. Hold on a sec. You can't say Jurassic Park and Sphere in the same sentence. That's not allowed.
Well, okay, so we did Terminal Man.
Yes.
And if you watch movies from the 70s that are Crichton based, like Terminal Man, maybe not Westworld, Coma, if you've ever seen Coma, which is actually directed by him. And this film, the science is very realistic to the point where it's a bit boring. It works great in his writing because, like, if you read his books, it makes you feel like you're a scientist. Like, I get this. I'm into it. I feel like I'm solving the mystery with them, and I feel like a real doctor when I read this book. But in the movies, it's a bit boring. It's a bit like that scene from Terminal Man.
That scene in Terminal Man does take the cake. That was the most sort of, we're going to bask in the awesomeness of science for 20 minutes, even though nothing of particular note is happening. No, that's interesting. I like the movie. I think it's perfect. There's definitely things to discuss, but I do think it has a better handle on the balance than Terminal Man did. I don't think there's anything in this movie that even comes close to that scene in Terminal Man, where it's just that for 15-20 minutes.
There's a lot of stuff that reminded me of Sphere in this too.
Again with the blasphemy. I don't
It's a good movie. Underrated.
I'm going to be bold here and say that this is a better movie than Sphere. All right, I'm just going to say that up front and get
Did you
that.
give Sphere like a 4 or something stupid?
I did. It's not saying much for me, admittedly, but I'm putting it in the wavelength for you to sort of see where I'm coming from. Right. So, Now, I like the sciencey stuff, and this maybe it does go a little bit too intricate at times, but I kind of dig this movie has a lot of good setup. There's a lot of good stuff where the initial like sort of finding of this town and all the steps that are taken, forming the team, the initial analysis, the introduced to the base and the lab and all the science fictiony kind of like technology, which all feels super old and quaint by our standards now, but they really present it in the movie as if it's like, hey, look at this touchscreen. Oh,
cute.
and it's like a CRT TV with just green text, and it's like you have to use like a special magic pen that'll
A stylus.
register. This is not a stylus. This thing is like a chunky big.
It looks like a laser pointer.
Yeah. So, like that stuff is, it's fun to watch that stuff because the times have changed and you get a kick out of it. There's definitely some specifics we'll get into in spoilers, but no, I enjoy that. I will agree that once the testing starts, it probably could have been tightened up. You know, the movie's about 2 hours and 10 minutes. I think you could have probably, because they get to the testing maybe just over an hour into the movie. I think you could have probably cut that hour down to about 40 minutes and just kept all the same stuff, but tightened everything so that it wasn't quite as let's watch a computer screen for 5 minutes as the data is scrolling by and so on and so on.
It's very intricate, and like when they go into the bunker area and there's like different levels of it, and each level takes like a while to get through because they have to do more and more testing. And I mean, I like the ideas there. Like I can imagine if I was reading the book, I would be very into that. But as far as the movie goes, like it takes them a long time to get to the level they need to go to.
I actually like that stuff for the most part. If I have a complaint about the 5 level system thing they introduce, is that beyond getting there to the 5th one, there's not really that much they're used. Like they don't really become that relevant later in the movie. Like other than the fact that we know there's 4 levels above them, they're the deepest level. But
well, I mean, I guess the very ending, it makes sense that, you know, there's a bit of a race to get to another level, but that's about it.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be specifically levels like this though. That could have just been, the facility's big and that, you know, this area is where they need to get to. End of, you know, that could just be that. Like it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
One thing I do really love about the film, especially after watching Fantastic Voyage, is that they made a female scientist part of the group who wasn't just there to be, you know, tits and ass in a form-fitting suit. It was really nice to have a character that was, I mean, she was definitely the best character. She like had all the best lines, like the best jokes. She had the best reactions. I thought she was great.
I don't know if I agree with that, mainly just because I found her...
You miss Raquel Welch in a swimsuit?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I found she constantly yells, and there was a point in the movie where I started to find that a little bit annoying.
I didn't really notice that.
She's constantly, like, she gets frustrated a lot and like yells out her answers to things.
Well, she's a female doctor in a man's world. She probably has to be heard.
Hey, the first time she yells is not to any person, it's to a computer. All right? Mm-hmm. With a female voice, might I add. She doesn't like computers. She's scared of technology. She's basically a leftover character from Westworld that somehow ended up in the Andromeda Strain. She's scared of the robots.
I thought she was great, and it was really refreshing to see, because if it was any other director or whoever, I mean, if the producer has maybe had more say, they definitely would have gone with another Raquel Welch-like character. That would, I mean, she's very believable in this.
No, I agree with we didn't go for the model,
she wasn't there
model.
to lure in the single scientist guy.
No. So no, I'll give her points for that. There is like a random gratuitous boob shot, although early on in the film, which we'll get into in spoilers. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't completely escape that. Was this where you would like to bring up what this director's also done?
Oh, I haven't looked it up.
Oh, I'll tell you then. This is directed by Robert Wise, who directed Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Oh, how fun! That's a good movie.
I
Did he
actually
do
agree.
West Side Story also? He did.
Oh yeah, but I figured you'd only care about Star Trek.
Well, yeah. Robert Wise, I mean, he's known for more than just Star Trek, but yes, Star Trek's at the top.
Well, Joe, I recognize his name, and I was like, I don't actually know what he's done off the top of my head, but I definitely
He's
know that
also
name.
has a director's credit for Star Trek the Motion Picture teaser. I guess directors used to make their own teaser trailers.
It's very specific. It's interesting that Star Trek basically killed his career, barring one more movie 10 years later, and then 10 years after that, a TV movie.
Well, I mean, once you get to the top, where else do you go?
Yes, the movie that many would claim almost killed the Star Trek franchise, even though I disagree
I
with
don't
that.
know why.
I love the motion picture. I like it more than a lot of the other Star Trek movies.
Thank you.
So, yes.
We also did the Body Snatcher, Curse of the Cat People.
All right, okay. We're falling into the... Let's just read the list of IMDb trap, which you're notoriously complicit
Ooh, The
in.
Haunting.
See?
Good movie.
Yes, would you like to discuss the direction?
It's fine.
Such enthusiasm and passion and, dare I say, intricate insight into the direction of Andromeda Strain.
I
That's
mean,
fine.
there's some good moments of tension. I think the movie is pretty heady and in the sciences, which I'm not normally someone who complains about that kind of stuff, but I watched this movie in like 3 parts, and each time I had to hype myself up to watch it.
I thought the direction was fairly solid. There's some nice touches, especially early on when they're kind of in the town and they're in hazmat suits. There's a lot of like really low angle shots looking up at them, so you're looking up at them in the suits and you can just see the sky behind them. And I thought it was a really interesting choice because the back half of the film takes place almost entirely in like laboratories that are underground, so it's very confined. So I thought that was did a really good job of emphasizing the difference, where early on you see nothing but open sky and open space.
There's a lot of interesting elements too in the direction where like he does almost like comic book panel scenes, where they'll do like flashbacks and then it'll be in a comic book panel, or we're looking at different scientists going through the same experience at the same time, and they'll have like a paneling. That's the only way I can think to describe it.
It tends to be only when... So either when the scientists are working on various different like tests, or early on it's when they're finding different like bodies and victims and like evidence of it. So it seems to always be when the virus specifically is like the topic of the... I mean, technically it's... I mean, the whole movie's about the virus, but you know what I mean? Like when they're specifically looking at it in some way. It tends to be what she is, though.
There's also just the general look of the movie when it'll have like that background and foreground, but they'll both be focused, and then like it's a little out of focus in the middle between them. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what you call that. Split focus, maybe? I can't remember. But
maybe. So like both background and foreground are in focus, but you could tell there's some like work being done with the camera or to make that work.
It's not post. It's I mean, if split focus isn't the right term, it's just it describes it well enough. It's basically that blurry line you're seeing down the middle is basically where the focal length is shifting halfway through the frame. So I actually don't like this effect because it's used in Carrie a lot, which is a movie I really like, but it uses this effect and I'm not a fan of it because when you look through a lens of a camera, there's a very natural effect you expect to see most of the time. Unless you've got a really wide lens that's fully open. But you have like your subject in frame, and then you have the background, which is out of focus. And then sometimes you might get fancy and go, you know what, I'm going to make the subject out of focus and make the background like in focus, and that can be like an effect you go for or something, right? But the rules of this say that you have on the type of shots that you would get here, you'd have subject to focus, and then the background would be very out of focus because it's a close-up, right? It's a very tight shot. So this movie and some other films, and it's a lot of movies from the 70s. It was around this time where it was used a lot.
It looks dated.
It does look dated. But it's basically this way of like having half the frame have like one part in the background in focus. So in most cases it'll usually be there's a character in the foreground, but then there'll be other characters in the background, and they want them in focus at the same time. So, but it looks really unnatural. Like it feels really weird when you see it because it there's something about it just feels off the whole time. And maybe it's the sort of thing where if you got someone who'd never seen a movie before and you showed it to them, they wouldn't think anything of it. But if you're used to watching movies, it looks weird.
It does. It does look strange. It kind of reminds me of when we were reviewing the Sabrina series on the Netflix series, where just like random things in the background would be a bit blurry or off.
Oh yeah, that was annoying. Yeah.
But anytime there's a person, they were always in focus, no matter where they were, or multiple people. It was, yeah, it's distracting.
Yeah. And what's so weird about it though is that, you know, I think of some of these shots from this movie or Carrie, and I think about them instead of having this effect, just choose one or the other, right? Or you could do what's called a pull focus, and you'll know what this is when I describe it, which is when you start and focus on the one in the background, and then you shift it, and then it'll switch to the focus on the one in the foreground, or vice versa, whatever way you want to go.
Yeah.
So either do that or have one out of focus the whole time, and that says something about the scene. This weird, I want all of them to be in focus at the whole time. I don't know what it is, but something about it, and I'm not, obviously Robert Wise is a good director, I'm not saying that he doesn't know what he's doing, but it always feels to me that it's like you couldn't make up your mind, so you're like relying on this trick instead. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but that's how it feels when I'm watching these shots.
It's I mean, that mixed with like the paneling, it kind of just makes it seem like he's just taking some artistic license here to make things look, I don't know, more poppy and interesting.
I didn't mind the paneling so much. I thought that, because it's established that early on, even the captions have like a black bar across the screen to sort of...
Oh, I hated the opening credits. Just gonna throw that out there. The sound that they were using, and it was awful.
I wonder if the black bar behind the text, even though it wasn't covering the text, I wonder if that was meant to sort of like evoke the image of like a redacted like file, like where you
classified.
Get yeah, because they do talk about how all this is classified in the movie, so I wonder if that was kind of the idea, is that to emulate that without doing the exact thing. It's possible, but I didn't mind. I mean, the opening credits, like whatever, but like the actual style of the paneling and the captions, I didn't mind so much. I mean, the captions having the black bar going all the way across the screen did feel a little bit like old school, where I'm like, I don't think I'd ever see a movie do that now. The movie does look good. I think they put a lot of thought into the sets to make sure the lab looked kind of interesting visually, because it could have very easily devolved into what a lot of low budget movies that are set in quote unquote laboratories, where it's just a bunch of really plain looking rooms.
No, I mean, it looks like a really sterile military base.
Yeah. Plus all the halls are curved, so it almost was like a spaceship at times in the hallways.
Yeah.
So you've got that kind of effect. You know,
I like the design of it. I like its function, the way it's designed. I think it's cool, especially when they get to like the bottom level and you see how they're able to like use suits to operate and stuff. I like all that. I think that's really well thought out.
Actually,
really cool.
Going back to my complaint that it doesn't really feel like the levels are that important, is that they actually make a point of saying that they're color coded, right? So when they're in the first level, all the walls are red, and it's got this really stark look to it. And then when you get to the fifth level, it's all sort of beige. And I was like, you know what? We spent so little time actually in the hallways of the other three levels. I actually don't think I saw them. I don't remember seeing the green walls, because we know I think there's a
Was
like
there a green one?
Well, no, you don't see it, but there's a map early on that's color coded, so you know there is a green floor.
It was like red and then blue. They went to a yellow room, silver, and then wherever they landed was like, yeah, I guess neutral beige.
Yeah, colorless. Yeah. So, which I thought was weird. Do you think you would end on red because it's the most dangerous one? It's danger, danger. You know, high voltage.
I mean, unless you're a virus, then when you're at the very top, it's the most dangerous.
True. Yes, it's just the closest to getting out, I suppose. Yes, but we'll get into like more details and spoilers. Yeah, I mean, I think I liked it more than you did. So.
Yeah, I honestly, like, the animal stuff like really turns me off of the movie. Like even the stuff I really like about it, I hated watching those scenes so much.
That's fair. I mean, I can't really argue with that. Like, it's just a proper reason. It didn't completely turn me off. It's kind of one of those things where I don't like, obviously, animal cruelty and things, and there's definitely lines that are crossed that if I know about them will ruin something for me. There's a reason why I've still never seen Cannibal Holocaust after all these years,
No, thank you.
despite the fact that I'm a huge horror nut. There's a reason why I've still not watched that movie. I think like stuff like this, I kind of like chuck it up to like of its time, and I can kind of just separate it in my mind that way. I think well, actually this doesn't bother me so much because I mean I don't care what they do to humans, we're humans. But one of the funny things that I do think about sometimes is that because there's a baby in this movie, right? And the baby's crying a lot, and all I can think is like, you know, the baby can't act. Like they have to make it cry.
I mean, it's a baby. All you have to do is take it away from its mother.
like all I can imagine is that maybe the baby's been annoyingly quiet. The one time a baby's quiet we don't want it to be is when they're supposed to be crying in like a movie scene, and all I can imagine is like some AD just going up with a stick and just going prod you, cry you little shit, go on, cry, and then just walking away.
I'm sure they had a lot more empathy for the baby than they did the rats.
Did they have someone on set as the baby slapper? They just go up and smack the baby.
I'm sure the mother was on set.
Oh, so she'll slap herself. You're right. She'll take slapping
I'm
duties.
saying that all you have to do to make a baby cry is take it away from its mom. In my experience.
Okay, all right. I just love the idea of. I mean, I didn't browse the credits.
Oh, you
thoroughly
love
enough.
the idea.
No, I know what I mean. I love the idea that in the credits there's just someone called the baby slapper, and then like.
No, I did see it in the credits when it said like special thanks to Humane Society or something. I kind of went, uh-oh, we're gonna get some animal stuff.
Isn't that good though? Does it mean there was protocols that were followed?
Yeah, but they're not the same.
Okay.
Clearly.
Fair.
You cannot make that monkey scene today. You'd have to do CGI.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it doesn't bother me at all if it's CG. If I look at it and it's like, you know.
No, I mean, why would it?
Yeah. Well, obviously it can get very realistic though. You know, when you watch the Planet of the Apes movies now, it's like, oh, these look lifelike.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just watched Tom Cruise jump off of the side of a mountain. Like, you could say, well, he's putting his life at risk, but Tom Cruise is able to consent to something like that, you know? But like a dog and A Dog's Purpose or whatever that movie was, where like it almost drowned because of a scene they needed to do by putting a dog in a river. Like, that's not okay. Use a CGI dog. Or don't film that scene. Right around it.
I have nothing, like, I don't have anything witty to say to this conversation, so I'm not going to.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think we could probably get into spoilers then. So I will take this time now to thank our Patreon producers at the time of recording. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palisades, David Sharp, Born Now, Al Tribesman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are our Patreon producers right now. That means they are $20 or more over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, but you can of course support us for much less than that. For example, you can support us for free with hitting the like button.
Ooh.
Yeah, look at that. Check it out.
Spicing things up.
Yes, but you can support us financially for much less than $20, can't you, Tara?
That's right. If you enjoy our reviews and enjoy the show, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of The Ace, and you will find gems like the Philadelphia Experiment 2, Free Jack, Future Force. Is that the one with the glove? David Carradine?
Yep.
That one was kind of fun. Yeah. So
It's okay.
check out your favorite B-movie science fiction flicks over on our Patreon page.
I'm not going to lie though, there's a couple of stinkers in there. Transfers 5 was not a good discussion because that movie gave us nothing to work with.
No.
Santa
Look
Claus.
forward to Transfer 6 though.
Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, similar. Robo Vampire. So there's probably like 3 or 4
There's some
really bad
skippable
ones. Yeah, but there's some gold in there too. For example,
Way to
Rotor
sell it.
was a delight. Hey, I'm being
Rotor
honest.
was really good.
Hey, if I admit to what the bad ones are, they know I'm being serious when I say, hey, this one's good.
That's true.
Right?
And there's also, if you enjoy horror movies, there's Screams After Midnight. They've got a bunch of good ones too.
Yes. We did Cursed just like last month, and that was
Fun.
hell of a conversation. And The Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage the month before that. So hey, lots of things to check out on there for just $1 per month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. So, without further ado, full spoilers for the Andromeda Strain from this point on. So the movie opens with like a couple of soldiers sort of looking at this town, and clearly they're here because they know the satellite's fallen, right? What did they call the satellite? I can't remember. Scoop. I wish it was Scoop. Anyway,
Sure.
so basically when they do like a flyby, they see nothing but dead bodies in this small town in the desert, and they freak out. And we get this kind of assembly of team, and they kind of like sort of show how top secret this is, where they just show up to like Jeremy, who's the guy who sort of runs the team, and his wife's just kind of like, "Whoa, wait, there's soldiers here for you, honey. What's going on?" And
They got guns.
and as soon as they say like a key phrase, he just turns to her and goes, "I have to go." And she's like, "Well, when will you be back?"
Wildfire.
I don't know. This is serious. And she actually tries to like call someone she knows, like not the White House, but it was someone high up in like some military organization. And the phone just cuts out after like 10 seconds and says, "This call has been monitored. Thank you for your patience, Mrs. Blah blah blah."
Yeah.
And she's
Like,
so frustrated.
Not just monitored, but like, we're
Yeah.
listening to you specifically, Mrs. Blank Blank.
Yeah. What's so funny about this is that there's weird parts of the technology that are kind of predicted the future, but then there's other things that are so extremely just like, no. No.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. Obviously, yes, monitoring the call, yes, but the fact that someone would just interrupt and go, "We're listening to you. Shut up. It's confidential."
Yes. Big brother.
Yeah. So that's Jeremy's the leader. We have Mark Hall, who is the doctor, the single man, and that's actually very important. The odd man, like protocol as they call it, which we'll get to, is important. We have the old man, which is not, they don't call him that. I'm just calling him that, which is done. And then we have
The very Burgess Meredith like. Don't you think he looked like him?
I wasn't getting Burgess Meredith, but I was getting someone from him.
Well, we have seen him. He was in the Twilight Zone.
Maybe that's what I was getting. I was just getting
Yeah,
him.
he's the suicide guy in the first season, the one who keeps trying to commit suicide. Escape clause.
Interesting. I actually, it's funny. The doctor, the odd man. It was bugging me what I knew him from, right? And admittedly, I'd seen this movie a long time ago, but I'd forgotten most of it. But I feel like I recognise him from something. And do you know what it is? He's
What?
the colonel in Commando.
Yes. Yeah, I did look him up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That got me
I know him
jazzed.
from he was in an episode of Mystery Science Theater. Well, an episode. He was in a movie that Mystery Science Theater did an episode on called Moon 02 also.
Oh.
Yes.
I've seen that episode.
Remember that thing that we used to watch and review on the show sometimes?
Why are you reminding them that we stopped doing something? Why would you do that? Never admit our failures. Except
Sorry.
5 minutes ago when I said that we should do that when we talk about Patreon episodes. Ignore my hypocrisy and just go with it.
Same as every day. Got it.
We have Ruth Leavitt, who's obviously the female scientist. I love the name Leavitt because I just imagined how many puns you could do. Ruth Leavitt. Whenever you're mad at it, it's like you tell it to shut up, you're like, Ruth, leave it.
Leave it. Yeah.
Leave it alone.
Stupid.
Or genius. So that is our team. But before they all arrive together, Odd Man Mark and Jeremy, they get some hazmat suits on, and they go into the town to investigate, right? And they find all these dead bodies. They find very little, and they find some weird things, like they cut some of them open, just on site, and there's no wet blood. It's all completely
It's all
dry.
like sand.
Yeah, it's complete powder. And like I said, there's a lot of these shots looking up at them, and there's just the sky, behind them. It's all very well done. It's a very eerie town, and it's kind of because they start seeing evidence of like more than just them dropping dead, right? Because I'm watching this, and obviously I'm thinking of I won't spoil it too much, but I'm thinking of a certain scene in Serenity, the movie that concluded Firefly, from Joss Whedon, the creator of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, just to get the whole thing in, right? But everyone's lying around, but then they start seeing evidence that some of them, someone's got their head in the bathtub, they've drowned themselves, there's a woman hanging from a noose, and it's like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here? And
Yeah, they had time to kill themselves.
Yeah, that's the
Where
idea.
other people look like they just died instantly, like they died while shopping.
Yeah, but some of them clearly saw what was happening. Because as we find out as the movie goes on, that one of the symptoms here was that some of them were genuinely going crazy before they died. And for some of them, that maybe meant seeing what was happening around everyone else, and it drove them to suicide. So it really paints this dark picture of just how awful this was. It wasn't just dropping dead from an unknown threat. It was like mass hysteria. Well, it's as much as you can get in a town that has a population of 6 to 8 people.
Yeah.
Very small town.
They must love visitors.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet. I mean, I don't think it was actually in the south, but I can just hear the the banjo playing from Deliverance, and we don't take two kind of strangers
like,
around here.
like New Mexico or Arizona or something.
Yeah, because the lab is in Nevada.
Oh yeah.
Which is in the middle of the desert. It's like the furthest point away from all the stuff, like, around them, like civilizations.
Yeah. It definitely looks like that too.
But they do find some survivors. They find a man who's still, breathing technically, and a baby that's crying. And it's like, wait, why did these two survive? So that sets up like one of our mysteries and kind of the problem to solve. Like, what made these two immune, or at the very least not as susceptible to whatever this was? And yeah, so we get a team. And we get introduced to the lab through Ruth's perspective, where she's brought in, and there's a really interesting detail here that does come up later, but it felt really random on the way in, where she sees like a blinking red light and says, "Oh, I hate blinking red lights." I'm like, that's a weird character detail, and it's not until later they actually mention she's got epilepsy, and I'm like, oh, that's why she doesn't like blinking lights. It's like a weird character tick. What do you mean you don't like blinking red lights? That's really specific.
I don't know. I mean, maybe she doesn't like stop signs, or who knows.
This was the 70s, like I mean, not I wouldn't say low budget. This movie doesn't feel like it's a low budget movie for the time period, but this was the 70s version. You know that scene in The Dark Knight where Alfred and Bruce go into like some building and he pulls a lever and the entire floor drops to go down to a secret, not a bat cave, but like what he's got is like a secret hideaway until he gets his bat cave in the third one, right? That's what this is, because they go into this like closet basically, and he just like flips a switch, and the floor starts dropping, and she's like, "Oh, what's going on?"
It's also very Disneyland Haunted Mansion ride.
Oh sure.
You go into this room, and then like it looks like the room is stretching, but really you're just going down a level. It's cool.
What I like about this is he doesn't warn her that they're about to start moving. So there's a little bit when it starts moving, she sort of loses her balance. He's like, oh. And I thought to myself, every time I've seen this scene, whether it's Dark Knight or, I've seen it in other things. I think Hellboy had
it on purpose. Yeah.
Seamless. They always either they make a joke out of it, or the person will say, hey, keep your hands in, or they'll say something to warn the person. But whereas this was just like, this was almost like what taught all these writers to put that line in all these future movies, is they watched the Andromeda Strain growing up, and they saw this poor middle-aged woman almost fall and break her neck, and they thought, you know what, we're going to be safe in our movie.
Why would they say something?
Because she might fall and break her neck.
Oh, that would be fun to see.
Your favorite character? Okay.
I'm kidding, of course.
Don't worry, you get to see her fall and have a seizure later. It's fine. You're gonna get all your weird desires fulfilled. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway,
I don't know either.
So we get a lot of exposition explaining the rules, and we get Chekhov's self-destruct mechanism. There's a lot to go into here, and I liked a lot of this. What was so funny to me is that when they're going down in the elevator, it cuts to like a... And I hate that this reminded me of this, but there's actually a lot of this in here. It makes me think that the movie ripped off a bit of this. Is the original Resident Evil movie, of all things, has like... Because in the games, underground labs are kind of a big thing. And the movie has that in the first one. And in the movie, it constantly does this thing where when they're moving in elevators, or sometimes even when they're just going down like corridors and stuff, it'll like go out to like a sort of like CG map of the base, and it'll show you where they're moving. Right,
so a little flashing red dot or something.
Well, more than that. This is more like imagine it like turn into like a wireframe of the entire thing. So it's more detailed than it should be, right? So I laughed kind of out loud here when they're going down the elevator, and it just goes to like a sort of black screen with white lines representing the floors, and it's just like a dot going down. And I'm like, this is like so ancient looking. But I laugh because when they actually go into the meeting room and he explains all the lab, the thing that comes on the screen to show them actually is more of like a 3D model.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
it really is.
Like, why didn't you show that in the other graphic? Why did we get white lines on a black screen?
I don't know. I definitely noticed it also.
It's like, if you ever get lost anywhere on the base, just go up to the nearest TV screen and the computer will show you a virtual map of the base.
It's a virtual CD-ROM.
Oh man, that CD-ROM stuff in Jurassic Park. I chuckle every time I get to it. She's so impressed.
Yes.
Lexi's so excited by the CD-ROM.
Well, she's a hacker. Makes sense.
Yes. And it's so funny, we've come so far. I've got a PS5 coming next month that doesn't even have a disc drive. We've moved on.
How dare you take this time to brag
I'm not bragging
about your ability to get your greedy little paws on a PlayStation 5 pre-order. I tried so hard. It was so confusing.
They keep having more shipments, so we'll keep the eye out for you, okay?
I might get an Xbox anyway.
Okay.
They got Bethesda. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, but none of the games are going to be ready for like 3 years.
Not play Doom? Not play Elder Scrolls 6? Yeah, right.
Okay, how soon do you think Elder Scrolls 6 is? Realistically.
3 years?
No, try more like 7.
Yeah, right.
No, they're doing Starfield first. They're making another game.
Well, I mean, who
Same team.
knows? These games are going faster than I thought. Like, next year we're getting God of War again.
That's
fast.
That is an exception to, and plus it's probably going to get delayed. But
Oh yeah, they're all going to get delayed.
but that is an exception to the rule.
I'll be surprised if Spider-Man doesn't get delayed.
How dare you? That's launch day. How dare you? I'll be playing that next month. You
We'll
take
see.
that back. You take that back right now. Anyway, we're getting off tangent. Or we're getting on tangent. We're getting off topic and on tangent. Let's get off tangent
Back
and on
off
topic.
tangent, on topic. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Stupid delay.
There's no delay. So.
I mean, delay in Skype.
Oh, right, okay.
We said that at the same time, but it's going to sound like I'm repeating you.
I said no delay there, like some idiot is shouting out no collusion.
Some idiot. Oh boy.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm laughing at my own accidental joke. Okay. Right. So, we have to talk about the self-destruct mechanism because it's very important. It's kind of where all the drama is going to come in the last part of the movie, because there's 2 keys, but the first key is almost irrelevant because the first key just goes straight in and never comes out. But it's basically, it arms the self-destruct. The idea being, if there's any kind of leak of the virus in this base, it will automatically go to self-destruct. There'll be 5 minutes until it goes up.
In a nuclear explosion.
And the odd man, Mr. Mark Hall, he is given the key that will deactivate it. He has to get to a substation, which are planted throughout the building, and he has to put the key in to cancel the destruction. And why is it him, you ask? Well, this is really explaining the odd man protocol. The idea being that he will make a sensible choice because he does not have a wife or a family to sort of like cloud his judgment. And he will make the right choice because of that, which I think's actually an interesting.
It's a little dated.
Well, it's a little dated. I don't necessarily hate it as an idea though if they actually did something with it at the end, but it never actually factors into this decision at the, because by the time we get to the end of the movie and this thing is going to go off, they already know what the rules of the virus are. They know what's dangerous and what's not. There's no question if they should stop it or not. Of course they have to stop it. He has to stop it. In fact, not only do they have to stop it, or there's no question, it will actively make it worse if they don't stop it. So
You're right. Plus, like, the whole idea of a man who's young and single and has a lot to live for would be willing to die for versus a married man. I don't know. I don't know if I buy it.
it's an old-fashioned way of thinking, I guess. Maybe I mean, if they'd argued that he gets this key because he's a doctor and he's the one who inherently cares about people, and therefore he will make the choice because he's taken an oath to protect other lives, or something like that, that would sound a
Right.
bit better.
But there's rules, like he can't use it in certain areas. It won't work. Is it the areas where the virus has already been exposed, or is it just like
No,
they have decoy ones?
No, it's not that. It was actually much simpler than that, and you'll laugh. And this sounds so realistic, actually. Is that they decided there wasn't enough substations, so they started building more, but they're not finished yet. They're not
Oh,
decoys.
that's right.
They're just not done yet.
I could remember. I watched that part in the first go.
They're just under construction. That's all.
That's right.
So we get this wonderful montage as they go down through the levels and all the testing, some of which makes some sense. They're getting asked questions about allergies and whatnot. Some of it's like injections. My favorite though, and this is the weirdest visual in the whole movie, is they've got like a chamber, and what this does is not the weird part, right? The chamber basically burns off the excess dead skin that's on their skin to sort of like cleanse them completely of anything that's excess, and then they have to go and shower off all the. It looks like they've got ash on their body because it's like just all this dead. It's essentially like a layer of dust all over their body, right? And that's not the weird part though. The weird part of this is that the room that they go into for this is a room that's all sort of crystals and mirrors, and then they're butt-ass naked,
Yeah.
and he's told to put on, because this can't hit your face. This light they're about to hit him with, this burning radiation or whatever it is, can't hit his face, so he has to put on this protective headgear. You're like, okay, that makes sense. The headgear they give him is this crystally, like, glass gimp mask. So
I was thinking very Daft Punk.
yeah, oh yeah, that's a good comparison. It's very Daft Punk. So he's standing in this crystal room with this crystal, like, completely like featureless helmet. It's just like a, just the crystal, and he's told to put his arms out. So he's just standing there like this with this mask on, and it's just like this weird. I'm like, what is this visual? What am I looking at right now? He looks like a zombie in a rave. Like,
Yeah. There's another one that the doctor, the lady Dr. Ruth, I don't like saying Dr. Ruth because that implies a different person, but Dr. Ruth is like a famous, never mind. But
famous, never mind, got it.
she describes like some kind of a mud bath that she has to take, or like, I don't know exactly what it was, but it sounded really painful and awful and gross. But we didn't get to see that part.
Yeah, we don't see
Maybe
it.
if she was played by, Raquel Welch, we would have seen it.
What's so funny though about it is that they keep showing what's happening to the men, and I laughed every time it cut between them because the men are all shot from like the waist up because you
Yeah.
can do that, but then every time it cuts to her, it's like just from like the shoulders up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is just really funny and uneven, and I get why obviously, but it's just kind of funny. It's kind of that thing how in movies
We get some man butt, like
oh we do.
old man butt too.
It's like that
appreciate it.
thing in movies where somehow the bed sheet's always perfectly like uneven, so that on the
Yeah.
women's side it's up to the chest, but on the man's side it looks up to the waist
I mean, they're
every time.
bed sheets. You can make them however you want.
I mean, you
Adjustable.
can, but it's just weird. All right, it's just weird. It's weird that the privacy of a couple who have clearly just had sex that she's so concerned about covering up her bosom. Logic does not make sense here.
Gotta keep him excited for the next time.
Immediately back into mystique mode.
Yep.
Mystery. You will not remember these boobs. That was a Jedi mind trick joke. I want points for making a Star Wars joke. I don't do it lately.
I mean, you won't get them from me, but maybe the people watching or listening will.
All right, well, I'll wait for my points. So they get down to the bottom and they do it, and this is where they split up. I mean, they explain at one point. I think they're on level 4 when they explain like all of their eating is going to be through pills. There'll be like pills and liquid because that'll have all the necessary. Because they can't have food down there because it'll it can spread things. There was a lot of mumbo jumbo. There was a lot of science
It's not
mumbo jumbo.
well, I think it's also because they have to kill like the organisms or the bacteria that's inside their body. Also, like their gut microbiome is going to get messed with, so they can't have certain types of food anymore since they can't digest it properly. Because they have to take a suppository. That was the last thing.
Yes.
That was the last thing they had to do to kill the microbiome inside their gut.
Yes, I am glad they didn't feel the need to show us that scene in detail.
No, but I'm glad some Dr. Ruth was very upset about it. After everything else you made me do, I have to shove this thing up there.
The only the weird one is that there's like a sort of like a
It's funny
clockwork.
to say that with Dr. Ruth, because Dr. Ruth definitely would have been into that.
A reference I did not get, ladies and gentlemen. I have no idea what she's talking about. There is one kind of like Clockwork Orangey moment where they're watching like a computer that's just like flashing like colors at them. I'm not even sure what's going on. It's like, here, watch this screensaver for 5 minutes. I don't know what it's achieving, but it's doing something. So there you go. This is the weird thing with a movie like this, is that they talk so much about the science, and especially once they get down to the testing, they split up, and like, you know, one of them is like sort of obviously the doctor's dealing with the two survivors and trying to figure out how they survived. A couple of them are working on like try to actually analyze what it looks like and how it functions, and then the other guy's like doing testing with the animals and seeing how it spreads from, you know, living thing to living thing. All, you know, valid parts of the chain. I mean, obviously we cannot like it in terms of watching a movie and what they actually had to do to get the animals to do that, but in a real world scenario, yes, they'd be using animals to do this kind of thing, and we'd accept it because we don't all want to die. Basically.
Sure.
But you know, there's a lot of
most animal testing is bullshit.
Most it absolutely is. Yes. Yes. We'll move on now. So, but there's a lot of tech talk. There's a lot of tech talk about the science. There's a lot of this stuff. And when I'm watching movies like this, because I don't know about any of these subjects that much, so I have this weird thing where I'm like, okay, this sounds all very like detailed. It sounds like well thought out. But at the same time, every so often, I'm just sort of going, okay, this all sounds good, but I get the feeling that a lot of this is probably bullshit too. There's probably a lot of weird bullshit cut corners, and I know Michael Crichton's known for like being very thorough, but at the same time, there's definitely like, I don't know.
He's also known for science fiction, so
Yes, he is. He's also known for bringing dinosaurs back to life, which obviously isn't based in fact.
I think. Well, he was on track to be a doctor. I think he made it all the way like to close to the end where he was actually like shadowing doctors and stuff for a while, but he never finished medical school. So he knows a lot about this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think I necessarily... There's no point in me trying to go through this next stuff in order, because it's impossible to remember what happens first in, like, the order of things. Let's just talk about the different things we learn. So, we find out that this virus, whatever it is, which they assume is from space, and they kind of conclude that it is because it has properties that are... It's made up of things from Earth, you know, it's oxygen, nitrogen, whatever, but it's kind of living despite the fact that it's missing acids and things like that, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it is living, like, when they zoom in and look at it up
there's
close.
No like protein molecules or amino acids. He said
It's like
nothing that's like the building blocks of what we have here.
Yeah, it's like pulsing and it's changing color, and they're looking at eventually it looks like a crystal, and that kind of solves some of the issues. But the real mystery I think that works really well for more as the audience is probably how did these two people survive? Because even though it's still a little bit sciencey, because obviously the doctor's talking about, okay, well, maybe it's medicine they take, maybe something he's drinking because he's a drunk or something, like something, you know, he's got an ulcer, did that save him? Like what you know, what you know, what does the baby and the old drunk have in common, right? What connects them that makes them both survivors? And even though there is obviously some science talk in there, I think that stuff was really easy to digest compared to the other stuff, because it's like, okay, we're looking for commonality, even if I don't understand why ultimately, like, the extreme ends of the pH scale are what saved them. Like the idea that if you're really acidic or really alkaline, it'll save you, but if you're, you know, in the middle, which most people are,
if you're healthy.
Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting. And it's kind of got that. I wouldn't quite call it the War of the Worlds thing, because it's not so much that our environment's hostile towards it, but it's got that War of the Worlds thing where it kind of just fixes itself, where it mutates into not being dangerous anymore by the end. But
it's got a little bit of a blob scene too, where they've extracted it from this little speck of dust that they found on the satellite that crashed, and it's this like green gooey stuff that keeps multiplying and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, oh, a little bit of a blob origin story.
That satellite, by the way, just as you mentioned it, is a lot smaller than I was expecting. It looks like a satellite dish that you'd find on someone's house, like the size of it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what kind of a satellite it was, or
Yeah, I don't know. Just you tell me satellite from space, I expect, I don't know, bigger, I guess.
Hubble.
I expect something a bit more meaty, but you know, it is what it is. But one of the things that's sort of running throughout the film though is that they kept recommending to the president to bomb the town, right, so that it can't spread. And there's an incident like halfway, well, it's probably like 2/3 of the movie, where a pilot flies over the airspace and dies and crashes the plane, and we see kind of what looks like his mask deteriorating.
much like the blood.
Yeah, much like the blood, yeah. Because it's just the specific substance, the specific type of plastic that just reacts this way to the virus. Which makes it more than a virus, really. I should stop saying virus. It's technically not accurate in terms of what it is.
I don't know what you would call it. I guess they mentioned it was bigger than a virus during all the testing.
Yeah.
But smaller than a bacteria?
But is this question, so they eventually convinced them, because they find out about this kind of late, because the communication system kind of breaks down, and they're like having these video calls, which again, you know, futuristic for the time, where they're talking to these other guys, and they convince this guy who's dead set against it to like convince the president to nuke the town, and then of course they discover something where the energy, and the energy from a nuclear blast specifically, will give this thing energy. It feeds off any type of energy. So a nuclear blast will basically turn it into a super virus and make it spread.
It'll constantly mutate to where you can't stop it.
So they then have to call them back and be like, okay, we did it. We've convinced the president to nuke the town. No, change his mind. Change his mind. You're going to kill us all. Change his mind. I liked all this stuff. I like all this stuff where they're just kind of like down in the dirt, sort of digging into all this stuff. And I always love like a bottle movie where the implications of what they're doing affects the entire world, but they're kind of like just contained in this small space, and it makes everything feel really big whilst being very small at the same time. And I think the movie achieves that well enough. It's not perfect. I would agree with some of the critiques that you've mentioned, but we haven't got to the exciting conclusion yet when the stuff goes wrong. But I don't know. But definitely a lot of this testing though, because I mean we've glossed over it because it does go on for a while, and there's a lot of like separate elements to it where you got the testing of the animals, then you have the testing of the they don't use the word, but they're basically doing the enhance,
right?
Enhance.
Do we want to talk about the animals?
We can talk about the animals. I just want to say though, at least here though, this was not a video recording they were zooming in on. This was a microscope which was actively zooming in on a live thing. So this wasn't bullshit, is what I'm trying to say. This scientifically made sense and wasn't nonsense.
Right.
So we can talk about the animals if you want.
Well, I mean, I know that you mentioned something to me when you were watching it, and when I watched it too, it was just once you get to the scene with the monkey in it, it's like, what the hell did I just watch?
Yeah, I mean that one's rough because the monkey starts kind of like holding on to the cage and like sort of spasming, and then eventually keels over. And all I could think was like, okay, how exactly did they make the monkey do? Because it's a real monkey. There's no effect here. So I was like, how did they make the monkey do that? Because
so they actually I read about it because I had to know, and they had obviously a monkey in the cage, and then once they opened up the panel on it so that it could be exposed to the air, they pumped CO2 into the air, so they just suffocated the monkey to where it like started to convulse. And then as soon as it laid down, they had somebody on the side with like a mask to revive the monkey. And you can actually, apparently you could see him like in the shot because he went in like even before they yelled cut to revive the monkey.
Which is notable because it's in a room where no one's supposed to be because it's like a quarantined like room. Right.
So they had somebody in the room, ready to revive the monkey once it starts to die. But it's still like you watch an animal be tortured to death, basically.
Yeah.
And then get revived.
It's super.
It's really horrible to watch.
It's super inhumane for sure.
Yeah.
Because I watched that and went, well, there's no way to fake that. Whatever they did to that monkey, they did something to it, and
and it's not a quick scene. Like you're really there with him while it's dying, and I didn't read anything about the rats, so I don't know if the rats just died.
I think the truth of the matter is that at least at the time, I assume that no one cared as much about rats as they did about monkey. Mm-hmm. Would be my guess.
So you also watch rats get tortured and maybe die. I don't know for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, they should have. I mean, this is the thing. Obviously, they don't want to use stupid stuffed rats or something like that to, like, do the scenes. I think it's the sort of thing where you maybe just don't show it, because there's so much in this movie that's not shown anyway. Because it's so much of them just in a. Because, like, ultimately, it's people in a room talking about what they're seeing on a screen, and there's so much stuff in this movie of people watching like data on a computer screen just sort of flash in front of our eyes. Because that's actually something that sets up with Ruth, is that at one point she starts to zone out because she's just watching like lights flash in front of her, and this sort of builds up to her seizure. But
yeah. Did you know this movie's rated G?
I did, because I made a joke when I noticed it was rated G. I sent you a message saying that after Escape from Planet of the Apes, I'm terrified of what's going to be in the G-rated movie.
Oh, that's right. We got boobs and animals being tortured.
Yeah, that's a good point. We did get boobs. There was a corpse at the start in the town when they were looking through it that was topless. So yeah. There was boobs and animal torture in this G-rated movie.
And man butt and almost male nudity, like from the front.
I mean, man butt.
Pretty low shots.
Man butt out of those three, though, is the least egregious, I think.
I mean, who cares?
It's man butt.
But like,
I admit today that's probably PG worthy, but still, like, it's not like fine. Put that in the G. No one cares.
But there's definitely boobs, yeah.
Yeah, that's
and plus the whole animal torture thing. But all right. Kids were stronger back then. I don't think that's true. I think people were just a little bit more lenient on what G ratings meant.
Well, they didn't have
70s.
They didn't have PG-13, so it was either is it a G or an R, and they went, we'll go with G on this one.
Kids will love this movie.
I think they're just hoping that kids will be too bored with something like this, and they'll just not want to see it, or just leave after the first 10 minutes.
Oh, well, sure, but not after you show boobs.
Sure, they may be waiting around for the rest of the movie, hoping there'll be more boobs. That's true. That's true. Well, it depends on the age. I mean, if they're under a certain age, they won't care about the boobs.
I guess that's true.
But the 12-year-olds, oh, they see those boobs and they're like, oh, I'm in for the long haul. So, anyway, where was I? Oh yes, Ruth has the seizure, which sort of happens. It all kind of crescendos. There's a moment where the older guy, there's a leak, right? The alarm goes off and there's a leak where he's in his room where he was testing stuff with the animals. In fact, one thing I want to describe actually before we go any further is because you mentioned this earlier, you sort of alluded to it earlier, but we should mention it properly. Is when they're going into the room to, like, you know, deal with the survivors or the animals or anything like that, they've got these funky ass like suits that are attached to the wall. So it's basically
I think they're cool.
it's like a full body suit version of, you know, when like you see in movies, and I'm sure real scientists use this, where they'll have like a box with like specimens inside the box, but they'll have like gloves that are built into the box where they just put their hands in. It's kind of like a full body version of that.
It's like a human accordion, almost.
Well, yeah, that's how it extends from the wall. They jump in this hatch, and then they're inside like this, like, you know, it looks like a. It probably looks more like a space suit or maybe a diving suit than it does anything else. But it's got this like accordion at the back where it just stretches out from the wall. And it's attached
to like a shower curtain rod, so they can constantly move back and forth. I think it's really cool, and I like whenever they need to use like mechanical arms and stuff to open stuff. That all looks really good. I love it. A lot of the design stuff I was really into.
Honestly, the mechanical arms didn't even feel that dated, despite the fact that it's like 50 years old now.
No, definitely
50
not.
Years old. So, you know,
and you
play.
can see like somebody operating the mechanical arms, like the actors using their own hands to like operate the mechanical arms. And it looks really in sync. So I don't know if they actually were operating it, but it looked good.
I think what made it look good is that less so the arms themselves and more the actors using the controls, is that the controls looked just as dexterous as the arms themselves did. So it didn't really, even though they probably were cheating, it didn't look like they were cheating on camera. And I think that adds a lot to it. So that's fair. So yeah, so like I say, there's this section here where the old guy, there's a leak in his room, so he's trapped in there. He's still alive. Ruth has a seizure when they hear the alarm going off and she sees the red light blinking. She has a seizure.
Yeah, but everyone assumes that she's got the virus. When she
because the nurse who's been helping the doctor throughout the movie, runs up and she's sort of hesitant, and he's like, no, she's just got epilepsy. It's fine. There's nothing virus related with this.
Yeah.
And she was in, and we should actually mention her because she's not like a huge character, but she's kind of there. She's helping. She's with the baby a lot. She's helping with the old man who is very flirtatious. And the first time he says something, it's not too bad.
Handsy too.
Well, yeah, that was what I was getting to. Is it's the first time he says something, it's not too bad. It's just kind of like,
he's disappointed he can't see her legs because she's the nurse.
Yes, yeah, it's something like that, and it's just a little bit, but it's like, okay, whatever. He's a drunk old man. But then later on, when they're both in there in the suits, he just cops a feel of her ass. I mean, it's through this big chunky suit, but she has to pull his hand off, and I mean, she takes it in her stride. She sort of smirks and just sort of like.
She's glad he's feeling better.
But yeah, he's not shy, so it's not like it's one of these things where
he probably thinks he's gonna die soon anyway.
Well, no, what I was going to say is that, like, you were complimenting the movie earlier for having a female character who isn't just a swimsuit model as one of the scientists. This is still a sign that we're still kind of in a certain period here. With not so much that it happens. Like, you can have a movie today where a character would do this, but there'd be a point to it. Whereas here, it's just the goofy old man. He's a bit of a pervert. Lol.
At this poor woman's expense.
Yeah, it's presented here as it's not a big deal. This is just haha. Normal stuff.
I do recognize the actress too. She was in a comedy series called Night Court for many years. Good to see her. So young.
So they try to figure out. So they're trying to figure out what to do to try and help the old guy. And it's just the main guy Jeremy and the doctor, and they're trying to theorize: do we like pump more oxygen in the room? Do we have less oxygen? Do we do this? Do we do that? And it's at this point where he kind of finally has his eureka moment where it's about the acidity or the alkaline content of his blood or whatever. And
it's something to do with the breathing. Like, he wants him to be under stress. Yes. Because if he holds in air for too long, then it allows the virus to penetrate through the lungs or something. But if you're constantly in distress, then you can't. The virus is helpless. Which is why the baby always crying causes that.
Yeah, but through the analysing, they get to a point by the end where even the animals, or one of the rats, is still fine, and they're like, wait a minute, this thing's mutated. It's not actually dangerous anymore. And then the other alarm goes off saying self-destruct is initiated. We're going to blow up in 5 minutes. And what's so weird about this, I do have a question here, because when Ruth had the seizure, there was a substation nearby because they passed it. And I was kind of like, wait, so really? Because they do a whole thing where they come out of the room into the hall, and by the way, what's the point of having these substations everywhere if shutters come down all around the ring, blocking off your access from every single one of them?
And shouldn't the odd man out be always around a substation then, and not near, in a room where there isn't one, or one that's under construction?
It's almost like he forgot he was supposed to be paying attention to where he was in relation to substations. Which, now there is one. To be fair, there is one there, but it's one of the ones that's not constructed yet. It's just like a box with cables hanging out of it.
Yeah.
But they come up with this plan where he has to go into the center pillar that sort of goes up through all the levels, because apparently security will be less strict on level 3, so he has to climb up. But unluckily for him, in case there's an animal from one of the test subjects breaks out into the vents or something and gets into this area, there's not only lasers, there is automatic target and motion tracking lasers in the central shaft, that start like tracking him, and to the point where we see him get lasered in the cheek as he's going up the ladder, and there's like a hole in his face.
Yeah.
It's actually quite
It's gnarly.
yeah, it's pretty brutal. And his hand gets lasered at one point, and I will admit they did go a little bit far here with trying to like convince me like they do that thing where he's getting closer and closer, but time's almost running out. Where there's two things they do here that feel like they're trying to milk the tension a bit further than it's really able to go. One of them is that once he gets hit in the face with the laser, is that he starts like almost essentially like losing consciousness, and kind of like his vision goes all blurry. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not so sure why getting hit in the face, or specifically the cheek, right? It's like a clean shot in the cheek. I'm not sure why that's making him go all, oh.
It doesn't seem to be any blood loss or anything. It's
No.
just like the shock is what they say or something.
That's how they justify it, but
Yeah, you would think it would cause more of an adrenaline rush.
I would think that too. And then the other thing is so he's getting to the thing, he's on level 3, the substation's there, he's crawling towards it, and he gets the key in, and for some reason, as soon as he puts the key in, his hand just falls, but he has to turn the key still. So this moment just felt so forced to me, that like, your hand's already there, but you couldn't turn it as your hand and let your hand fall as you turn or something. Like, I don't know. It felt like, okay, you're going to tell me that he's like struggling to get his arm up. I'll buy that. But it's weird to me to do it after he's already got his arm up to put the key in.
Or if he has like some type of paralysis in his hand or something, maybe from the laser. But I don't know.
Yes, but obviously he turns the key and stops it from blowing up. But it's this like double-edged thing where, and not double-edged in the usual meaning of that phrase, but I mean double-edged in the sense that not only are they all going to die if he doesn't do this, but it will actually mutate the virus again and might make it more dangerous. Not only more dangerous, but super dangerous, because it'll be like super powerful.
Yeah.
So there's all these reasons why he has to do it.
And they don't have any more bunkers to analyze it, so
No.
yeah.
And I do have fun with this section at the end, even though it is a bit.
I mean, a race
forced.
against the clock is always going to be fun.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because it does almost feel a little. It feels like a little out of like tone with the rest of the movie, which is very kind of slow burn science fiction thriller of this virus. Where did it come from?
Yeah,
Where did
it's
it go?
very Sphere, though,
Where did it come
right?
from? Cotton Eye Joe.
I always approve of bluegrass music. But I mean, it's very similar to Sphere, though, isn't it? Like the last ticking time clock section, and just like civilian scientists being set to analyze a alien, a possibly dangerous alien.
If you think I remember how the third act of Sphere went, you're absolutely delusional.
Well, the underwater
You don't have
set
to
was
explain
going
it.
to blow up, and they had to escape in time.
So, okay, so they were ripping off Andromeda
own-
Strain.
Oh, okay,
I get it.
the same author.
Okay, Michael Crichton was a hack who always put the same plot in every movie. What do you want from me?
I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities between Andromeda Strain and Sphere.
Yes. Just there's a lot of similarities between Jurassic Park and Westworld. I was trying to, like, in my mind as I was watching this, try and figure out how this is technically they go to a theme park, but the virus turns out to be deadly.
No, there's not that. I guess it's a lot of similarities to I don't know what else I was thinking of. Prey and Congo? 13th Warrior in Congo.
No,
I'm sure they have similarities.
I will say that there is some things you can compare to Jurassic Park and Westworld in this, and maybe even
definitely.
Sphere as well to an extent. They're both similar in the sense that there's a lot of explanation as the characters go to the location. So in those cases it's theme parks, and in this case in Sphere it's like a underwater
Well, it's always civilians being brought in also, like
It's
regular
like-
Joes.
well, it's experts in their fields or whatever. Except from Westworld, where it's literally just civilians because it's a theme park. But it's always characters being brought in and having to be explained a lot of the rules of the place and how it works. I mean, and that's kind of a broad thing, don't get me wrong, but it is definitely very consistent in a lot of these Michael Crichton stories. They all seem to have that element to them, which I don't mind. I enjoy it. I mean, it's definitely a bit of an exposition dump, but when it's well defined, like he tends to do it, like, say what you will about this. I mean, my disappointment here with the level of explanation isn't that it's overcomplicated or I had to sit and listen to it. It's that they didn't do anything with it after. I was all for all this, like 5 levels and the different color coding and Like I was wondering like if like the race to the you know the key at the end was going to be like, oh, we have to go through every level, and he's going to have to like go through all the obstacles. Like there's lasers on one floor, there's like a like arrows on another.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
think
know.
we would see like as he was climbing up to other floors, we would see the different colors change. Maybe we did, and I just didn't notice it because the colors at the bottom all kind of blend into one.
The central shaft didn't have different colors. I mean, there was a different color when he was in when he actually got into the hallway, but the
I
central
mean,
shaft didn't.
they build the red set, they build the blue set, they built the yellow set. Why didn't we see him again?
Oh, because they weren't different sets. You realize they just repainted the same set.
I heard that they put quite a lot of money into building these sets, though.
Yeah, but they can still save money if they're going to spend almost all the time in the beige set. They just shoot all the other scenes with the other colors first, and then just paint it beige and do the rest of the movie.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but like, I don't know, like it seems odd to make the whole set for like 3 seconds. Maybe not 3 seconds, but like 3 minutes of a movie.
Well, that's the point though. They didn't make it for 3 seconds. They painted it for 3 seconds.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's no accident that all the floors look identical. The hallways, they're all the exact same.
Well, yeah. Never mind. Let's move on. I understand that it's the same set that they just painted, but it's still like a lot of work, and they have to make the different clothing for it and whatever.
Yeah, we never mentioned that and during the montage of them every time they went to a new floor, there was like a shot of like one of their jumpsuits like being thrown into a fiery pit.
Yeah.
It's a Reid.
Yeah.
Dear. So obviously everyone wakes up at the end and they're all fine. No one died, and basically Congress or whoever like, well, we solved this problem, and there's an explanation of how they like what they gas the area so that it would go to the sea and like
Die.
yeah. I can't remember what the explanation was. It was
Earth will take care of it.
Yeah.
Nature will do it.
yes, nature wills it. But basically he's like, well, we stopped this biological threat, and he's like, well, yes, but there could be another. Dun, dun,
This
dun.
time.
Come back next year for the Andromeda Strain 2.
Yeah.
The virus.
Or like the blob ending, right? The end ?
Ah, there you go. Actually, one element we didn't talk about is that there's a bit of a conflict, and this is maybe another complaint, is that there's so many cool ideas in this that don't really get, the idea of all these levels don't really get used. The idea of like the odd man like having to make the choice to like stop the detonation isn't really a factor because it's so obvious he has to at the end.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing they don't really use that much is that there's actually a conflict at one point where the other characters sort of learn that this base was built not to like stop viruses and like protect the Earth from this sort of stuff. It was originally built to actually develop biological warfare, and that even the stuff in the satellite, the idea was is that anything it brought back could be turned into a weapon, and this is kind of part of the arms race. It doesn't really do anything with that past them being annoyed about it, that one scene.
Well, that's okay. They do it in Alien.
What? What's that for an explanation?
It's followed up in another film series.
What? Your logic does not resemble Earth logic.
This is something that will be explored later on in the 70s.
They're not all part of one big, interspersed
All science fiction
franchise.
movies are, yes.
No, they're not.
They're
How dare
all
you?
connected.
Unless we're going with the Tommy Westphal universe theory.
All science fiction movies are connected, yes.
How am I supposed to respond to this? It's fine. They brought this back up in Alien.
It's fine. We'll explore this, deeper, in depth in 1979.
What do you mean? It's not even the same studio. Never mind the same people behind the camera.
It's all right. It gets addressed.
Oh my god! I'm imagining us doing like next week's movie now and talking about, oh, it's okay. This is dealt with in like Ex Machina in like 40 years. It's fine. It's addressed then. It's something completely unrelated. Oh my god. I don't know how to respond to that. Okay. the movie has faults. There's no denying this. And there's definitely lots of things it introduces that aren't brought up on. Although most of the things it introduces I do really like. And I like the general setup of it. I like the build, I like the finding of the town and all those elements. And I do think it's pretty solidly directed, you know, those split focus shots notwithstanding. The characters aren't particularly great though. They're a bit in the simple, bland side. I think that's true across the board. None of them really stick out to me all that much.
Not even Dr. Ruth? I think she's great.
I feel like I think I like the idea of the character. I think maybe with someone else.
You want Raquel Welch. I understand.
No. It could be someone equally not a supermodel, to put it as nicely as I possibly can. But I don't know. I could see someone better, more charismatic in the role.
I thought she was excellent. Definitely to stand out.
That's not just her though. I'm only pointing at her because you're specifically prodding me to like say what I mean about her because you're defending her. I do think the cast, none of them are bad per se. I mean, the Doctor does all right. Like, you know, I mean, he's the Colonel from Commando, so he's you know, he's definitely a cut above. But yeah. But I liked it more than you did, even though I do agree it has faults and it's, you know. So I mean, I'm curious to see what your wrap up here is and what your rated is that you're about to give me.
Well, I mean, it's hard to knock a movie that's so close to Sphere. One of the greatest science fiction movies ever made. But I'm going to have to knock it a little bit. I think that it suffers a bit from the science being not overly explained, but maybe a bit too detailed, maybe a bit more than we need it to be. You can movie it up a bit for me. You know, I mean, as much as I like the ideas in Terminal Man a lot, that one scene that lasted way too long, I'm sure is great for doctors to watch, as I assume a lot of this movie is also, but not great for us non-doctors to watch. I definitely cannot forgive the film for what it does to animals. Even if it was a fantastic movie, I would have to knock it for that. I wish I could give it a 1, but I can't. Like, I'll look past it as much as I can for the rating reasons. But if you are, you know, at all hesitant to watch movies where animals are in pain, clearly, then don't watch this movie. Let this review be enough if that's how you watch these. I don't know. I think overall it is a cool concept for a film. I like the sets. Even of its time, I think it's pretty progressive. I'm going to give it a 6.5.
I mean, boobs in a G-rated movie is the sort of progression that I think we can all get on board with.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw some happy trails on some young men. Not like young men, but like our lead scientist guy who was the younger single guy. That was nice. It was just a little something.
You keep saying young. I don't think he's that young. He's the youngest out of the men, but I don't think he's that young.
Let me see.
He's still like mid-30s at youngest.
Yeah, but he was acting next to like two 60-something-year-old guys.
I mean, I know, but he wasn't young. He wasn't some young
born... He was a little hunky. Okay, yeah, he was
40.
41.
That'd be my guess, yeah.
He looked all right for 40.
I just think your perception of what young looks like is starting to skew a little bit.
Ah, damn it. It's happening. Young strapping whippersnapper.
Which is going to make like 25-year-olds look like toddlers to you now.
Oh, gross.
Here are these young kiddies. Get off my lawn. Alright, so 6.5 from you. I'm going to give it the 7. I think I'll happily give it a 7. I enjoy this is the second time I've seen it. I enjoy how methodical it is. I enjoy the methodical Like, we're going to do the process, which it kind of betrays a little bit, but I also think it leaves a lot on the table for stuff that it sets up that it doesn't really go into that much.
Yeah. I definitely didn't care about, like, maybe if I watched it more than once, I would have kept track of, like, 11:55 p.m.
Oh yeah, it brings up the time. I think that's just to make it feel more accurate. Like, oh, it's very sciencey because we're constantly telling you the time.
Yeah. Or like where we are with the time next to it. And it does a lot. And I didn't bother keeping track. But for somebody who does keep track, I'm sure it pays off.
Pays off? I don't know if it pays off. I'm sure it adds up. I don't know if it pays off.
Maybe that's enough.
Yeah.
The fact that it adds up and it works, it's that's the payoff.
Maybe if you pay attention to those times, though, maybe there's actually like a time travel element we've completely missed because we weren't paying attention to the tell signs on the screen. It went back in time at one point.
The whole movie's it was shot in reverse. How did we not know?
Oh my god. It's the
ending's actually the beginning. We created the virus.
It's the Memento strain. Thank you, everyone. Yes, you can hold your applause, everyone. So that is. Did you not hear my joke?
No.
I said it's the Memento
You don't have to
strain.
repeat it. It's okay.
I love how I went to repeat it and you talked completely over my repeating it as well.
I don't want to give you any credit. Good night, everyone.
Well, I suppose we'll wrap up the show. If you've made it this far, put the word wildfire into the... Which, by the way, there's a lot of fires these days as well, so between the virus and the fires, like this
you have to tell me you know where I live.
This movie's got a lot of weird, like, timely, not predictions, but timely topics. So put the word wildfire in the comments. You made it this far. I'm going to make Tara do the pose for the thumbnail. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, pose.
I don't know how to do these.
That was a face of a constipated woman if I've ever seen one.
I'm never that happy when I'm constipated.
It was, I'm constipated, but I'm supposed to pose for a photo, so I'm going to pretend to not be constipated. That's what that was.
Sure.
That was the magic. All right. Of course, you can let us know what you think of the movie in the comments. I mentioned the like button earlier. Liking is super important. Helps us out a lot, as does patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. All these things, super important. Coming up next week on the show, I remember to actually tell them this time because I have forgotten so many times recently. Coming up next week, well, there may be one before then, but coming up for sure next week is the Omega Man.
All right, back to Heston.
Yes, back to Charlton Heston.
Yes.
So, yes, like I say, there may be an extra one before then. We do have a little vote winner to deal with that has to go out, but that could be later in the month though, depending on when. Because we're actually recording this episode a little later than we normally do. So I feel like there won't be an extra one before next week's episode because of that. But that's coming up. So look forward to that. Tara, would you like to promote any other MailFuzz TV content?
Sure. It's new, so I'm still going to promote it. Please check out our reviews of Babylon 5. We have just started reviewing season 1, and so catch up with us. It'll be really quick because we're only a few episodes in. Thank you.
Yes, you can watch along and hear our conversations afterwards. If you're watching it for the first time, or if you're an old fan who's wanting any excuse to watch it again, or just listen to people talk about it.
Mm-hmm. We are both pretty new at this. I mean, I don't really know anything about Babylon 5.
I don't know much past the early stuff, so yeah, it's a journey of discovery and seeing where things go and all the rest of it. But hey, that is pretty much us though. This has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. We have been discussing the Andromeda Strain in our little mini sequel to our 70s month. So look forward to another 70s movie next week and the Omega Man, and yeah, we'll see you for that. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction, guys. A computer at Salsa.
Give us a butt first.